The end of the year is a good time to sum everything up and make some conclusions. There were a lot of things to remember in 2022. Some clubs managed to transform themselves into something completely different, while some others are yet to do so. In this video, we're going to tell you about 10 clubs that grew in price the most in 2022. But first, here's our question to you. We're used to seeing big clubs spend big money on big players. Sometimes splashing the cash is worth it, and sometimes it ends up being a total waste. Which one of these mind-blowing transfer campaigns failed to bring a single trophy to the club in the season that followed it? Real Madrid 2009, Manchester City 2017, Chelsea 2020. Feel free to leave your answers in the comments, as now we start. Fulham plus 95 million. The Cottagers' whole squad used to cost only 145 million euros a year ago. It's no wonder though, as Fulham had to suffer yet another relegation from the Premier League. In summer 2021, Marco Silva was appointed manager, and the club got down to work with a task in hand: win promotion. 2022 ended up being a good year for the club. Fulham finished first in the championship with 90 points, but these numbers won't tell you the whole story. The Portuguese manager taught his team to play attacking, possession-based, high-pressing football, which allowed Fulham to score 106 goals in 46 championship games and finish the season with a plus 63 goal difference. Alexander Mitrovic broke the championship record with his 43 goals. Such a performance, as you might expect, increased his market value by 10 million euros. The same thing happened to the other footballers who led Fulham to promotion. Harry Wilson, for example, made the most assists in the 21-22 championship season and also was the second best player in terms of chances created. Though Zambo Anguissa, Fabio Carvalho and Jean-Michel Seri, worth 50 million in total, left the club, Fulham managed to sign proper replacements for them. So such players as Joao Palhinha, Diop, Andreas Pereira, Carlos Vinicius, Bernd Leno and William joined the club, as well as some loanees. Now in the Premier League, Fulham is still doing well, as the Cottagers are going 7th. Their market value has risen from 145 to 240 million, which is a 65% increase. PSV plus 96 million. PSV, one of the biggest clubs in the Netherlands, won 2 domestic trophies in 2022. They beat Erik ten Hag's Ajax in the cup final and then did it again in the Super Cup. Though they were 2 points short of winning the league as well, you can't deny that the football the team played was a joy to behold. PSV is among those few clubs that prefer to raise their own young players rather than make signings. Thus, 9 million were spent on transfer signings last summer, while the players sold cost 30 million in total. That doesn't sound like big money, of course, but that's how they do things in the Netherlands. The PSV Academy is what makes the team's market value grow. The biggest star of the year was without a doubt the Academy product Cody Gakpo. He was worth 22 million euros at the beginning of the year, but his marvelous season for PSV, as well as his World Cup performance, have already boosted his market value up to 60 million. Both the best scorer and playmaker of his team, Gakpo moved to Liverpool in late December for 42 million, plus 15 million as future bonuses. Xavi Simons is another one whose market value increased significantly. The youngster was worth 2 million when he joined PSV as a free agent, and now he's worth 18. And not to forget Soumaré, the defensive midfielder whose market value has increased from 14 to 35 million euros. So that is why PSV has grown in price so much, while little to no money had to be spent. Stade Rennes plus 98 million. In recent years, Stade Rennes has become a most competitive side, able to successfully qualify for the European Cups. At the same time, the average age of the squad is under 24, which makes Rennes the second youngest team in Ligue 1. These are some striking numbers, But what is the exact reason for the club's recent success? Unlike Fulham, which got promoted to the Premier League, Rennes did it the other way. It was mainly about the players' performance and their progress. Benjamin Bourigeaud is a prime example of it, the midfielder who made the most assists for Rennes. Martin Terrier is another one worth mentioning, the team's best scorer with 21 goals in Ligue 1, which boosted his market value by more than 20 million euros. A lot of Rennes players left the club last summer, among them Aguerd, who moved to West Ham for 35 million, Tel, who joined Bayern for 20 million, and the striker Laborde, who moved to Nice. And though many expected the team to do way worse without the leaders, the club defied all the expectations and made some extremely useful signings. Guiri, Kalimu Ntomu-Inga, Deate, and Christopher Wood. These are some young and promising footballers who keep growing in price. So that's what made Rennes' value increase from 219 to 318 million euros. AC Milan, plus 100 million. The Rossoneri's way back to their own glory has been a long one. Last season, Milan finally won the Serie A for the first time in 11 years. That success has a lot to do with the man in charge, Stefano Pioli, but the club's transfer policy is also worth mentioning. Last summer, the Belgian midfielder Charles de Ketelaere was signed for 32 million. Dest joined Milan on loan, and Divock Origi was signed as a free agent. It surely wasn't the most notable of transfer campaigns for Milan. After all, they simply didn't have much money to spend, as they got nothing for Kessié and Romagnoli. Milan is another club to have raised its market value not because of transfer signings, but due to their own players making progress. The likes of Rafael Leao, who made a big step forward in 2022, worth only 35 million a year ago. The attacker now costs 85. We can say the same about Theo Hernandez, whose market value had a 12 million increase. However, it's not only about the club's performance, but about being a first-choice player for France as well. The likes of Tonali, Maignan and Pierre Kalulu, those who made an undeniable impact last season, have grown in price as well, just like a bunch of young players who are currently at AC Milan. These are the reasons why the club's total market value has increased by as much as 100 million. West Ham, plus 109 million. Yet another team to have had a great season. The Irons, with David Moyes in charge, made the football world talk about them with both their Premier League and Europa League performance, and they almost made it into the Champions League at some point. The board decided to build on that and make the transfer signings the team needed. First thing first, so the Irons parted ways with those whose salaries were too hefty: Yarmolenko, Diop and Fredericks, while Musaku and Vlasic were loaned out. Though West Ham didn't really earn much from all that, it did a lot of good to the club's salary budget. Now this is how they spent that money. Paqueta, Scamacca, Aguerd, Cornet, Emerson, Jones, Kehrer and Areola joined the club. They cost West Ham 182 million euros in total, which is downright crazy for a former mid-table team. Of course, there are those whose value has increased since last year. The team's biggest star, Declan Rice, added 5 million to his former price of 75, and Bowen, who's been outstanding for West Ham, added 7. The winger could have even moved to a bigger club. It didn't work out though. The biggest problem for West Ham is that their squad is full of players who are either in their 30s or approaching them. They are unlikely to improve in the future, while the newcomers are yet to adopt. So the significant increase of the team's value hasn't really contributed to their results on the pitch so far. Bayern Munich, plus 133 million. Bayern Munich underwent some significant changes in 2022 as Julian Nagelsmann kept transforming the team so that it would better fit his vision of how football should be played. The biggest transfer sensation was of course Robert Lewandowski leaving the club to join Barcelona for 45 million euros. Apart from him, there were others to leave Bayern: Niklas Zule, Tanguy Nianzou, Chris Richards, Marc Roca, Joshua Zirkzee and Omar Richards. These transfer departures brought Bayern 104 million euros, though the club had to spend some of the money earned on signing their replacements. Matthijs de Ligt came from Juventus for 67 million. Sadio Mane from Liverpool cost 32 million, and in addition to them, Tel, Gravenberch and Mazraoui were signed. The Moroccan joined Bayern as a free agent after his contract with Ajax expired. So Bayern spent 30 million more on new signings than they got from selling players. Why would their transfer value grow then? The thing is that many of Bayern's signings are young and promising players who are growing in price with each game they play. Jamal Musiala is the prime example of it, as his market value rose from 60 to 100 million euros. But after all, it's fair to say that Bayern's market value increase has a lot to do with the club's transfer activity. Arsenal, plus 197 million. It's been a long and troublesome transformation period for Arsenal since Mikel Arteta was appointed manager. Wenger and Emery left a lot of dead wood to get rid of, and that's what Arteta has been doing. Last summer, he kept on selling the players he didn't need. The Gunners finally parted ways with Guendouzi, Torreira, Leno and Konstantinos Mavropanos. These four cost about 24 million euros in total. Lacazette and Bellerin left Arsenal as free agents, but it was the club's desire not to extend their contracts and let the players go instead. In addition to all that, a number of players were loaned out, among them Nicolas Pepe, Nuno Tavares and Maitland Niles. After so many transfer departures, new signings had to be made, and there were some very decent new signings, as Arsenal signed Alexander Zinchenko, Gabriel Jesus, Fabio Vieira, Matt Turner and the young Brazilian Marquinhos. Though these players cost Arsenal as much as 132 million, that was surely worth it. The stunning increase of Arsenal's market value is caused by the young talents making progress. First of all, Bukayo Saka, who was worth 65 million a year ago, and now his worth is about to hit 100 million. Gabi Jesus was worth 50 million when Arsenal signed him, and now he costs 75. Martinelli, his compatriot, has increased in market value by 32 million, now it's 60. Edegor has grown in price by 15 million and Nketiah has added 8 million to his value. So the reason why the Gunners squad increased its value by 35% is not only the transfers made, but also the right approach to their own young players. Barcelona, plus 204 million. The stories of the Gunners and the Blaugrana may look alike, but the difference is that Barca is in financial crisis and can't afford such spendings. However, that didn't prevent Barcelona from bringing new faces to the club, among them some world-class players. Last summer was a monumental one for Barcelona, as the team's squad was rebuilt almost entirely. Coutinho, Aubameyang and Trincao were sold for 35 million in total. Pjanic, Neto, Braithwaite and Dani Alves left the club as free agents, while Umtiti, Dest, Lenglet and Gonzalez were loaned out. These were the actions that allowed Barcelona to allocate some money to spend on the newcomers. And now for the three big transfers Barca made last summer. The Brazilian Rafinha came to Barcelona from England, as the Blaugrana paid Leeds almost 60 million euros. Jules Koundé, the French centre-back, came from Sevilla for 50 million, and Lewandowski, as we've already mentioned, cost Barca 45 million. And that wasn't it for the Blaugrana. Kessié, Christensen, Bellerin and Marcos Alonso were also signed, and all four of them joined Barca as free agents, thus allowing the club to save more than 100 million euros. At the same time, Pedri's value has had a 20 million increase, Govis a 50 million increase. Ousmane Dembele has grown in price by 30 million and Araujo is now worth 25 million more than he was last year. Thus, smart transfer policy combined with young players' development made a completely different team out of Barca. Newcastle, plus 226 million. Newcastle's new owners, the Saudi Sheikhs, have already revived the club, as the former underdogs have turned into a top 4 side. And what is more, the attacking football they've been showing under Eddie Howe is another thing to make the fans happy. As you probably already know, the Newcastle new owners are the richest ones football has ever seen. There have been jokes about Newcastle turning into another version of Galacticos from day one, but surprisingly, the club is yet to make really big signings. In January 2022, they signed Bruno Guimaraes for 42 million, Chris Wood for 30 million, Dan Burn for 15 million, and another 12 were spent on Kieran Trippier. These were some record numbers for the club, as Newcastle spent more than the biggest English clubs that winter. In summer, more signings were to be made. Alexander Isak, Sven Botman, Matt Target, and Nick Pope were signed for 136 million in total. Thus, Newcastle spent more than 200 million in 2 transfer windows without actually making profit from selling players, as they were either loaned out or left the club as free agents. The team's results on the pitch have surely made the footballers involved grow in price, those who are not in their 30s yet. Guimaraes is now worth 20 million more than he was a year ago. Willock and Saint-Maximin both added 8 million to their market values, while Joelinton's worth actually doubled itself. Nottingham Forest, plus 233 million. Another English side in our list is Nottingham Forest, the club that made us talk about it at the end of the 21-22 season. Unlike Newcastle though, the Forest managed to add almost 500% to their former value in just one transfer window. That is, a transformation and a half. As they got promoted from the Championship, Nottingham had by far the worst squad in the Premier League. The club's ambitions were what spurred the transformation. After all, there was no other way they could ever stay up. And now, just think of it. Nottingham Forest signed 29 new players and sold or released 18. In fact, the club got itself a completely new team, so we're not going to tell you all the names, just some you might know. Gibbs White cost 30 million, Taiwo Awoniyi 21 million, Nico Williams 20 million, Bonaventura 15 million, Aurel Mangala 13 million, Moussa Niakate and Julien Biancon 10 million each, Lodi and Freuler 9 million each. Another one to join the newly promoted Nottingham side was Jesse Lingard, while Dean Henderson, Sheikh Kouyaté and Wayne Hennessy joined the club as free agents. 162 million were spent on new signings in total, while the club got only 7 from selling players. The Forest young players, making progress, made the team's value grow by an additional 70 million, as their price grew significantly when the club got promoted to the Premier League. For example, the young Welshman Brennan Johnson, he was worth 5 million in January 2022, is now worth 20. But despite all the improvements Nottingham's squad underwent, their football is still mediocre, and the team is struggling in the relegation zone. That's where the difference between them and Newcastle lies. Dear friends, which of these teams made the most of their transfers in your opinion? Or are their transfer campaigns you consider a waste? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you!